Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Podcast, episode 132. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill. And I'm Rory Summers.
And I've got a board game related rant to make.
Here we go. Right, get your buffer out, boys.
Not even warming us up. Straight into it.
No, I'm sorry. No, we're going in hot today. So, some of you may be aware that the Castles of Burgandy special edition from Awakened Realms is being sent out to people.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
So it's people who kickbacks this game found, having it turn up on their doorstep, and it's a rather hefty box. It's also one of those hefty boxes
big
with the
pieces.
big pieces, miniatures, punch birds. Yeah, because yours hasn't turned up yet.
I've not even had a notification.
The wound. To be fair, I had a notification before it arrived, which seems to be quite rare these days for a Kickstarter or game found.
I think it's because you went for the base pledge and I didn't.
I went for the middle pledge.
Did you? Oh.
I went for the all-in gameplay pledge rather than the basic pledge, which because there's only like $10 difference between the two.
Yeah, okay. You went for the sensible pledge.
Yes, but you went for the silly pledge.
Yeah, so what's the rant about there? I'm really confused about because it's a great game that's arrived. What's the problem?
So, it's a massive box full of stuff, and I'm going to admit, this is a massive box full of tat, because there are miniatures for things that would normally be tokens. You know, the whole tray of miniatures, basically. You know, victory point markers are now miniatures. There's little actual burgundy-coloured castles that you put on the board.
Yeah.
Inlays, you know, for instance, now there's like a little hexagonal plastic inlay you put on so your tiles go on and don't slip around all over the place.
It's quite nice.
But that's not your rant, though, surely, because
you
knew that when you paid the pledge.
I knew that, yeah. But this is a big box of stuff. It also comes with 3 layers of insert for all this stuff.
Right.
So, of course, you open the box, loads of inserts. Now, one insert is pretty obvious because it's where all the miniatures are. The miniatures sit in there nice. The other 2 inserts are empty.
Okay.
So all the stuff that's on punch boards and in baggies has to go into those inserts.
Yeah.
There's no guidance anywhere as to how these things are supposed to go in. But Awakened Realms have put on one of their Game Found updates a selection of videos of people putting stuff into the inserts. Excellent, I say to myself. Here we go. Here's a guide on how everything is supposed to be packed in. Now, bear in mind, these are like game tray style. I don't know if Game Tray made them, but they're game tray style game trays, so plastic molded. There's obviously slots for various things. These videos do not show you how to put stuff in the trays. It shows you people trying to work out how to put stuff in the trays, one of which is 45 minutes long of someone punching the cardboard pieces and putting them in. Awaken Realms, go get a Mind Clash game and look at the piece of paper that comes in there that tells you exactly which tray has everything in. So I don't have to work it out.
When you say piece of paper, you mean booklet.
Well, yes. One of them was actually like several pages, wasn't it?
Yes.
I love that rant. That is such a Steve Tudor rant.
Well, because usually you get these things, at least I can go into Board Game Geek and go look at images, look on Facebook or Twitter. Nothing. And the videos were people trying to work it out just the same as me. In the end, I found another video, which was somebody else who'd worked out what they thought was the best way of sticking it in. So why didn't just Awakened Realms just send the information based on how they designed these trays? Not just like, will this bit fit in there? Yeah, looks about right. Anyway, it looks very nice. We'll talk about the game fully in a few weeks' time when we've all played it, or when Andy's got his copy at least.
The next few weeks are going to be pretty busy for me. So, but yes, let's be optimistic.
Well, haven't you been receiving like a Kickstarter a week for the last 6 weeks?
I have not. No, well, not for a while. The last ones I received were what were they?
Oh, was it just Lords of Ragnarok turned up, which was like the equivalent of 6 games?
It's true, actually, yes. Lords of Ragnarok turned up a couple of weeks ago on schedule, which I have dutifully put on the shelf, and there it remains.
Well, speaking of big boxed all-in games...
That was a masterful segue, Mr. Cheer.
I'm very proud of that one, actually, yeah.
Well done.
So, me and Mr. Lewis the other week played Terra Mystica. And I mention it because Andy has what can only be described as a coffin full of Terra Mystica content. I keep calling it Terry Mystica.
Terry Mystica? Yeah, it used to be in Phoenix Nights, Terry Mystica. There's a shit magician at Phoenix Nightclub.
I remember this box. I had to.
You did. You
lug it
reached.
around.
You reached it down from, or rather, you passed it across from when I bought it. I think it was Games Law a couple of years ago at Expo. Like last year, I think it was. Because the crowd was, revolting, and you just sort of passed it over to me, which was very good of you, sir, because you are tall and statuesque, and I'm not.
Well, I don't mind shouting over people. When you're at Expo and you've got like the queue, like you've got 3 deep people just looking at stuff.
Yeah.
Oi! I know what I want.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Like it's like when you're imagine being at a bar, but everybody at the pub is just looking at drinks.
You mean tourists?
Yeah, pubs at Christmas.
Pubs at Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a word for them, which I shall not repeat on this podcast.
We won't use that word. We won't use that word. It's a bad word.
It's not quite a bad word. It's bad enough. Anyway,
Close
moving
enough.
on.
It'll be misunderstood.
Terra Mystica. Now, I have the big box, which is basically, obviously, it and all of its expansions. But Steve and I and Delora played the base game. Because we've not played it before, at least I haven't.
You hadn't. This is
my first time?
For all of you.
We played Gaia Project before. I thought I'd played Terra Mystica, but actually I haven't.
Oh.
Because I thought, I know how to play this. Get out of the box, man.
I don't know how to play this.
I don't know how
Terra
to play
Mystica
this.
it's one of those games that I owned and then sold and then realised, actually, no, I really want it, so I bought it again.
Well, that's a rousing endorsement of the game, surely.
Yeah, but I sold it, I bought it, sold it, lost a bit of money, but then bought it again for cheaper than I'd sold it, so it was all right.
That's
all
not
worked
bad.
out in the end.
It was on one of those Amazon stupid deals. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, great game.
Well, that's like the cat out of the bag right now, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a great game, but you historically always disagree with me.
That
Andy,
is not
so.
true. I just disagreed on Stefan Feld because his games are mostly shit. Anyway. Which is interesting, given that I'm waiting on Castles of Burgundy. But never mind, moving on.
You're all in pledge.
I know. Terra Mystica. Well, it is. What is it? God, it's a kind of area control, get your stuff down on the map and get points kind of game, with a little bit of magic involved, kind of.
It's quite hard to in that way. It's difficult to explain, isn't it? Because there's a lot of moving parts,
there is,
which are quite different. So there's a whole element of getting stuff off your board. Because stuff off your board gets you points, so you want to get those things onto the board. And then there's a whole element of area control. But as it's called Terra Mystica because you've got to terraform the land. You can't just your land is your land. You're a mythical creature or a mythical race, and you can only live on one type of terrain. So deserts or swamps or mountains or something like that. So in order to make your place suitable to put buildings down, you have to terraform. And the cost to terraform is on this little circle on your board. So the further away you are from what you're trying to swap is from your preferential material, the more it's going to cost you to do that. And then basically the rest of the game is building settlements and such like. So you get settlements for certain amounts of buildings together. You get points for joining sections up. And you can only build within, you've got to try and expand your territory. You can build rivers across, that kind of thing. I don't want to go into the bog down into too much detail because it is it's bizarrely a complicated game and an easy game at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Mechanically, it's quite straightforward.
I think it's easy because I think the iconography is actually really useful. And once you get your head around, you've got to turn this grassland into water so that your mermaids can live there. And then you always take an object from the left-hand side, and this thing can evolve into that thing, and that thing can evolve into that stronghold, and you do that, you get this bonus. I think once you get your head into it, it's actually very intuitive, that player board.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Definitely. Apart from the magic pool, which took some getting our head round.
If I remember rightly, when we played Gaia Project, the same problem happened.
Yes.
So if I remember, you've got 3 pools of magic.
Yes.
You've got, and they're levels 1, 2, and 3. And when you spend magic, you can only spend it at its most refined level 3.
Yes. Correct.
And,
so then when you do something that allows you to move magic, you can move something from 1 to 2, or 2 to 3.
Or 3 to 1.
Well, you would never want to move 3 to 1.
No, you don't move it from 3 to 1, but when you spend it, it goes to 1.
It, yeah.
And if you've got anything in 1 or 2, you cannot spend the third. which makes it really bloody hard.
The amount of times you think, I could really do spend the magic. Oh, hang on, I've got to do this, this, and this. Yeah, you've got to upgrade all the 1s to 2s first before you upgrade your 2s to 3s, which makes it quite... There's a limitation. I haven't got the rulebook in front of me, and it's a couple of weeks since we played, and I've slept and got drunk since then. And I know there was a limitation on how you could upgrade magic, and so you had to keep your pool moving. So if you didn't spend magic, for instance, you couldn't upgrade magic. So you had to keep on going round. But the amount of times, and I think all three of us did this, like, I haven't got enough magic points.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can spend it all in one go, I think, Rory. Once it's moved and you start your turn again, I don't think you can spend the third if it's in level 1. So, like, if you've got a big pile in level 3, you can spend all of that. But once you've got stuff in level 1 and your turn starts again, I'm fairly sure you can't spend level 3 until it all moves around.
It's been a few years since I played it, but I always remember magic was a right ball ache. The rest of it's, like I say, quite... I think the rest of it I'd get quite intuitively, like building the towns. So once I've got a level 5... So you've got houses, then you've got trading posts, temples, I think it was
sanctuaries and then strongholds. Yeah, that's right. But you can go to different. There's different routes.
Value.
Yeah, the different routes to get to each one. But yes, it would not be the first time that Steve and I have got a rule wrong. Let's be honest here. So mountainous piles of salt with this. But anyway, we can all agree, magic was a pain in the ass. It did work, though, because it was a nice limiting factor that you couldn't go hog wild. Right, I'm going to spend tons of magic now. You have to actually be sensible about how you approach pooling your resources and planning ahead so that once you've got a big pile of sexy magic, you can actually do something useful with it. So it required quite a lot of forethought, which was good.
And the other thing I remember really liking about it was how you have the turn counter tells you what you're going to score points for, and you've got the temple tracks.
Yes.
And how they change, and how that changes between each game dramatically changes your strategy. What you want to focus on early is against what you want to focus on late.
Yes.
Because that helps you manipulate these 4 tracks, these classic 4 Euro tracks at the side of the board that you send your little priests off to go and do stuff. And I remember, I just love the game. It's a great game. The one thing I don't like about it, though, is the full art. I really dislike the look of the game.
Really?
I really don't like it.
It's of a time, if that makes sense.
It's very dated, yeah. The new version, like the streamlined version of Terra Mystica, I forget what it's called now. Terra Mystica Nova, something like that. They've updated all the artwork, and I think it looks a lot punchier, a lot more modern.
Right. I will admit that for my dog eyes, it does struggle with some of the colours because it's just, a 7-player game, I think, but I think there's something like 12 factions to choose from if you add the extensions and stuff into it as well. And you can tell they're starting to run out of colours because there are just so many different shades of brown. Or purple.
I also think it's quite muddy.
Yes.
I think it's a muddy graphic design. And I think, again, that's of an age when everything had textures. I think it's when you could buy texture packs off the internet and then you can make your art with texture. Because the forest just seems to be like green and brown texture. Mm-hmm. And then the desert is yellow and brown texture. Mm-hmm. And it's,
even your player board has that scaled effect, doesn't it? And it's that can be,
as I said, various shades of brown.
Yes. Which, I mean, I didn't have any issue trying to work out what's what, but I could see how you could, Andy, for instance.
Oh yeah,
it would make sense. Yeah,
I'd need to play with people of a certain who chose a certain color. You know, like you couldn't have sort of orange and yellow and brown and red, for example, because I'd just be especially on top of the tiles, which are obviously various shades of brown as well. Oh my god. So yes. I could distinguish when we played. It was fine. There's only 3 of us, and we picked like blue and orange and something else, black maybe, or purple, whatever the hell colour it was. But yes, if there were a lot of players, I might start to struggle because I remember unpacking it all handily. There's like a this is where you put things into these baggies because it handily comes with loads of little baggies. And the little labels for all the little bags as well to tell you if it's for an expansion or not. So I was going through the piece of paper. So it did tell you how to sort the game, unlike Castles of Burgundy. And I remember looking at 2 of the player boards, and honestly, the yellow and the orange are pretty much indistinguishable to my eyes. They are just ridiculously so close. I had like put them under, different shades of light and go put the red light, yellow light, see what it is. Right, that's blue. And then Laura opened one of her bags and said, "Did you pack this, Andy?" It's like, "Yeah, half the colours are wrong." Yeah.
I have a question for you. So you said it was like a 6-player game or something? Did you say?
I think it plays up to 7
6.
if I remember rightly. Or is it 7 factions and plays up to 5? Something like that.
I think base game is 2 to 5.
Right, okay, yeah.
Okay. So is it like all the factions, and if there's more factions than there are potential players, are they different? Or are they just literally themed in colours?
They can be. I think we played Billy Basic, everyone's the same, but if you turn the player boards over, I think they have asymmetric powers. Is that right?
They do all have asymmetric powers.
Yeah.
And there's the other good thing that if you pick yellow, if you want to play yellow, you can play the board is 2-sided, so you can pick either the nomads or the something else, if I remember.
So the basic
races.
So the basic races, everybody's the same.
No,
everybody's different on one side.
Everyone's asymmetric.
Everyone's asymmetric. It's just it's recommended first player, like beginners ones, which is what we played with.
Oh, I get you.
Just to stop things being too complicated. But yeah, there's only 7 different land types, so you could never have more than 7 players.
Yes.
I think, because then people would have 2 different. You can't have 2 people wanting the same kind of land type.
And does it scale all right?
It scales. I think it's better at the higher player count because the player interaction in this game when you play this at 2 players, you could essentially just be on opposite sides of the board doing your own thing, and it's whoever gets the most victory points. The game gets really interesting is I start building settlements near you. That's my settlements or my terraforming happens adjacent to your areas. If I build something that's more powerful than if I build a temple, temples are higher scoring than your settlements, you get magic because I've built something powerful next to you. I think it's like that. So everyone's you're trying to get your stuff spread out as quickly as possible, and you want opponents to build next to you because when they do, you benefit from it. But you want them to upgrade before you upgrade because you benefit if they upgrade, and then you do it, and they get nothing. So it's really interesting. There's no take that. There's no attacking. There's nothing like that. It's this very passive aggressive player interaction. But you only really get that with you playing 3, 4, or 5 players.
Yeah, because one of the key interactive mechanics is because your clan, for want of a better term, race, clan, whatever, can only exist on one particular terrain type. It costs you each clan, race, whatever, can turn terrain types from one to another, and it costs you a certain amount, and each cost for each race is different. So it might cost me like 1 shovel to turn mountains into desert, but it might cost Rory 3 shovels, for example. So every little dial basically is very different. So you can be a complete bastard. So like if I know Steve's playing next, for example, I could go, aha, it'll cost me 1 shovel to turn this desert stone here next to him where he wants to build into something that's going to cost him, say, 3 shovels next time, and really pissing his chips. Now that's assuming I'm thinking ahead and paying attention, but you could do that.
But it also means you've got to have because you only have 1 action a turn, don't you? So it's like you've got to have the action and the ability to do that. It's not the type of game, for me anyway, when I play this, that I'm not going to spend my actions doing something just to dick on you. I'm going to do something that benefits me, and if it dicks on you, brilliant.
Yes. So yeah, you could, because there's a constant fight for these terrains, so you can turn a terrain, just put hex down on the board. But just because you've changed it doesn't mean, assuming you've not built on it, someone else can't come along and change it again. So nothing is permanent unless there's a building on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quality game. It's been around for ages. When did it release?
2012.
2012.
11 years, wow.
Yeah. So
and there's like 4 different successors to it at the moment.
Yeah.
Gaia Project, Terra Nova. There was another one as well I just saw, which I've never heard of. It apparently came out this year. Age of Innovation.
Never heard of that.
No, exactly. Yep.
Oh.
And it's moved between publishers as well over the course of its lifetime. So it's again, it's never going to go away. And it is a classic. And you're right, though, it doesn't really fit easily fit into it's an engine builder, it's a tableau builder. It's not anything like those. It kind of stands,
almost on its own. Yeah, no, I agree with that, Rory. Yeah, because there are elements of area control. There are elements of, I wouldn't say dudes on a map, but you need to put, emptying your player board,
stuff on
engine
them,
building. Yeah, you've got to think ahead about you've got to. There is a fairly tight action economy in it, but it's not as tight as, say, a Stefan Feld game. So you could slip up, and you wouldn't be boned. I wouldn't say you can't waste actions necessarily, but if you're less efficient than you should be, and assuming everybody, because people will make mistakes, people will get in each other's way, you've kind of got that buffer of, what's the word, inefficiency that allows for a nice, smooth game. Whereas, say, for example, in Bonfire, if you're playing with experienced players and you make a mistake, you're Whereas in this, I think you're okay, generally. He says, having played only against, novice players.
But Sid, as we were talking before the podcast about playing a game on a board game arena, Terra Mystica's on there.
You go.
Wow, maybe that's serendipitous.
And it's a good game that you can play turn-based as well.
Oh.
Because, you can take your turn, and then 2 hours later I can take mine. I
but
can see what you've done. I can then do my thing, and chances are it's not going to impact you at all.
But you forget, I'm a man of a certain age. I can't remember that gap. I'll have forgotten what I've done. I've forgotten what you've done.
Tomorrow night, then, I'll make sure I get a bottle of red in and put some time aside, and we'll just play. Okay. So that's Terra Mystica. Cracking game. But you enjoyed it then, guys?
Yes.
Was it money well spent to buy that big box and get all the fancy expansions?
I think so. Yes. I mean, at some point, I'll probably play them all. But yeah, we live in an aspirational world, don't we, in board games? Yes, I'll play this ridiculously large game that's got tons of expansions. Of course I will. 25 years later, I've got a load of other, 100 other games that fit into that category as well. So I'd like to think so, because it's not actually a long game either. I mean, it took us a little bit because it was a learning game, but I reckon you could probably get through a game of this with 4 players in about an hour. Maybe an hour and a half.
I think once everybody knows the rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not a tricky long game to play, and as you say, Rory, it's only 6 rounds, so it doesn't outstay its welcome either. So there's a nice tightness to it. Yeah,
there is. So that's what you played. You two. So you guys played that a couple of weeks ago, and Steve and I went around to Steve's house last night and had the dog try and bite my toes off.
As he does.
And we played some board games.
Nice.
It was my fault. He was under the table, just having a sleep, and my feet are there stretched out, and I'm just waggling my toes in front of him. And clearly, he was like, "Oh, that looks like fun.
That looks tasty." You can probably hear him in the background right now, little sod.
So Steve and I last night got together and we played Wizards & Co. from Sinister Fish. So this is coming to Kickstarter within a few days of this episode launching. So hopefully,
fingers crossed.
If you like the sound of this, fingers crossed. Timing sticks to it. If you like the sound of this, it's going to be live on Kickstarter right now. So thank you to Dave at Sinister Fish for sending us a review copy. Wizards & Co. is a base-breaking game, which we don't get many of those. So base-breaking game is you will have a tile or an item or a card which players will play their hand of cards against, and once a certain value has been reached, the base then breaks and then kicks off all the actions of the cards, and you get victory points. In Wizards & Co., the bases here are dungeons, hexagonal tiles, which have a number of entrance points, and the idea is that you are a necromancer, and the wizards are all dead, and you're going to go. You've recruited a band of Neanderthals and ne'er-do-wells and thugs to go into the wizard's dungeon to pillage for all their treasure. So here, in your turn, you'll play up to 2 cards from your hand. You can play 1 card face up, or you can play 1 card face down, or you can play 2 cards in different dungeons. And depending on what cards you play and what orientation, dictates how many cards you're going to pick up for the next turn. Once all the available entrances for a dungeon are filled, and they do differ depending on which dungeon you're on, a fight kicks off, and that's where all the powers of the cards come into play. So you've got some cards that kill other cards, some cards that stun other cards, cards that adjust the power level, some that just give you, the player, the bonus if you're there. You work out all of that. Then whoever's got the highest overall strength claims the prize, and they claim a little treasure tile in the middle of the dungeon tile that gives them some end game perks or some immediate perks. Second place takes second place, and then you flip the tile over. You've got a brand new dungeon. You reload it up with new treasures, new enchantments, which give you a little twist on, makes that dungeon different from the others, some special rules, and you keep going. It is a really simple game. It was probably a little bit simpler than I thought it was going to be when I first heard about it, because it's from the designers of Gollum and Cumbria. So I thought it was going to be a bit more, but
Cumbria.
I've played this several times now. Coimbra. What did I call it?
It sounded like Cumbria.
I thought you said Cumbria as well.
It's like Cumbria? What's that about? Sheep farming and water and mint cake.
That sounds like not a bad theme for a Eurogame, to be fair.
Well, to be fair, terraforming Scotland was not far off that, was it? Wool and cheese and... Anyway, Rory, sorry, I interrupted. Yeah, Coimbra.
That's quite right. So, because it comes from those designers, I thought it was going to be a little bit more complicated, rather a bit heavier than what it was. But I've played this now. I've played it 2, 3, 4 player, and I found it to just be a very enjoyable game. It is a very light game, but it is a very enjoyable game. If you've played things like Smash Up, if you've played things like Blood Bowl Team Manager, it's a base breaker game. I think, Steve, you said it was a lot like Marvel Snap as well, which I've not played.
So Smash Up was the first thing I thought of, but Smash Up is a game which looks simple but ends up getting quite messy, just because of it. It's a longer game, so it felt tighter. So if anyone's ever played Marvel Snap, which is an app game, and I meant to mention this game on the podcast before, Marvel Snap has no rights to be as good as it actually is. It is absolutely brilliant and thoroughly addictive, and it feels that kind of punchiness. Because Smash Up can go on for ages. Team Manager, I mean, you'd be lucky to get hold of Team Manager anymore, but Team Manager is a fantastic game, but again, is a bit long-winded.
It's about 2 to 3 hour game.
Yeah, this feels quite nice and tight.
Yeah.
And I've got to admit, Sinister Fish, considering what they've done in the past, it looks completely different to what, the last 3 games have done Moon, Streets, and Villages. This looks and feels like a completely different game. And apart from a couple of minor issues that we put down to prototyping, the graphic design and artwork are all really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everything's made straightforward. All the symbology is nice and straightforward. There was no... The only things we had to look up on the rule was this minor issue where the artifacts, which are things you can win, didn't have a name on them. So there was like a rule sheet that summarised what the icon meant. But it said equipment. Rather than saying like the hammer of Thor, it had a picture of a hammer and just equipment underneath. So we had to go through and look at which was the hammer out of the special abilities.
So, and I think that's because I was using, like, the rule book was the one I've printed myself because it's prototype. And so we put that. But that was the only confusion we had. And I think I did the teach and we played this probably in 45 minutes. And even at a 3 or a 4 player game, it doesn't get much longer. It is your turn. You play a card. You've got some. There's a little bit of take that. I'll get really annoyed, Sid, when I've put my Titan and my Hobbs in this dungeon, and I'm rocking like a strength 10 already, and you come along and play a card that kills all my giants. Right? Just because you've got that in your hand. And I was saying to this, it's a lot like Libertalia. There's a lot of cards. It doesn't say a lot of cards. Every player has a hand of cards, and every player has access to the same cards. The game comes with a few extras, I think another 6 or 8. So at the start of the game, once you get a bit more experience, you can decide, actually, we're going to take the Void Imp this time instead of the Troll, or instead of the Ogre. And we'll take... So you can build a different deck, but every player will have the same thing. So I know you've got that card, Sid. I was hoping you weren't going to play it on that dungeon, or hoping it wasn't in your hand yet, because I really wanted to win that. So it's really, when you see, all the nasty things that every other player can do.
So you have all those cards all the time. So you don't like prepare 6 cards to go into your dungeon.
No, so you have your deck, and then depending on where you are in turn order. So Steve and I both started with 2 cards. If I play 1 card face up, I get to draw 2 more. If I play 2 cards in the same dungeon, and they have to be face up, I draw no cards. So if I want to go Billy straight out and go, right, I really want 2 cards in here, I then don't pick up any cards. That's not great if those are my only 2 cards in my hand. So you have that little choice there of how you're going to play, or if you play a card face down, like your giant killing card, for example, you might want to play that face down so that then other people do go in there with their giants. You flip it over. Yours was the first to activate and kills half of the dungeon.
Nice.
Right. Nice.
Which is a clever little... So there is this clever little interplay that you can do, but I know that you've got access to that card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a good game. It's really punchy. It's really quick. It's, to me... I own Smash Up and I own Blood Bowl Team Manager. If I wanted to play a base breaking game, this is by far and away the best version of that.
Well, that's really interesting, because that what you just said there kind of addresses one of my... I mean, it's not a deck builder, is it, as such, but you have a deck of cards. But one of my things with decks of card games is where everybody's deck's different. And if you just... The first time you've played this game, it's really hard to get into because you have no clue.
Yeah.
What somebody else's deck is. So how are you supposed to play that game? But if everyone's got the same deck that you've got a fighting chance to get into it really quickly and actually be aware of, you can enjoy your first game rather than just sitting there and going, I don't know what to do here because I don't know how good my cards are versus somebody else's cards.
And it's not a big deck of cards. I think it's only 12 cards.
Oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds something you drop
before
right into.
We play, I can go through. This card does it. This card stuns beasts. This card kills giants. This one stuns imps.
Mm-hmm.
This one eliminates stuff. There you go. That's what you've got, Sid. And it's just, when you see it, and it's got written on the card, it's got really clear iconography. I can do this. You know roughly what you've got coming as well. I certainly didn't benefit from knowing what all the cards were before Steve kicked my ass. So...
Yeah, that's because he's savant-like in this kind of stuff, isn't he?
There's just some games, Sid. Some games twig and some games just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that we talked about Terra Mystica. If I remember rightly, we played Terra Mystica and I won. We then played one of the North Sea games, the not Shipwrights and not Raiders, the other one, Explorers. And not only did I do bad, I got in a huff that I did so badly.
Yes, you did.
Huff bad.
You did apparently, yes.
I did get a bit of a huff about that. I'm still in a huff about that. That's discussion for another day.
It's a really good game, Explorers.
Yeah, apparently so. I got my ass handed to me on a plate.
Yes, you did.
Can't imagine what that feels like.
The problem with that game was, this is a complete tangent now, is that I'd realised that I couldn't win about halfway through the game. And then that was it. That was when the huff started, because I realised there was nothing I could do. There was no catch-up mechanism. Laura had completely landlocked me out of doing anything. And I was just like, well, what's the point? Might as well quit now.
Yeah. I suppose it does have that slight drawback, is if you are dependent on the tiles that come out. So if you can't build an island, you're a bit screwed if somebody's skanked the good one.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a complete tangent.
Yeah. What did you think of Wizards of the Coast, Steve? So obviously we had a little chat afterwards. But...
So I do think this is one of the, as you said, this base breaking, which I didn't realise that was a term for it. Apart from Marvel Snap, which is actually a video game, I think this is actually one of the tightest versions of this kind of game. I mean, I've got Smash Up. I've got Smash Up and about half a dozen expansions for it. I don't think I've played it in 6 years. Because it can get sprawly and messy, even though it's a really good game. This wasn't sprawly and messy. It was neat and tidy and had some extra things in it. So to Smash Up, of course, I'm going to keep referring to that. It's all about doing crazy things because you're mashing up 2 completely different factions that do silly things, like the pirate ship and moving stuff around and, firing cannons and all kinds of crap. This, although everything had special abilities, there wasn't a huge array of special abilities. So everything was quite, as you said, everything was even. Everyone had the same cards.
Mm-hmm.
And also there was this other aspect of getting the gems.
Yeah.
So one way of getting the victory points was getting gems, and you get a better gem depending on where you place the monster in the dungeon. So the spots on the dungeon had gemstones. And so you wanted to collect sets of gems to get points, which meant there was another layer about where you put cards. There was one point where I put a card down and go, I'm going to go there. And you went straight away, oh, you're only going there for the blue gem. It's like, well, yeah.
Yes.
I want the blue gem to score lots of points. So my only trouble with it is I don't think this kind of game is the kind of game I play much anymore. which is not a criticism of the game. It's just not in my wheelhouse at the moment. I was actually thinking maybe this is a game which is on the edge of where Jai could enjoy it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not too complicated. And since Jai can actually take on a bit more complicatedness than complexity. That's the word I'm looking for. Jai can take on a bit more complexity than you first think. I mean, he can smash us all at Ticket to Ride, which is terrifying.
Shit.
But I think he'd like that because it's got cartoony art. I said all the graphic design's really neat and clear, so he'd understand it. And I said it's a quick game. I said we played it in 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and that was cool. Learning the rules as we went. So yeah, I said I think it's a really good implementation of this kind of game.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is light. I say for me, either it's not the type of game that I'm gonna keep in my collection.
Yeah.
Because it's not for me, but it might be good for the kids, and it's a lighter game, so it's quick as well.
You'll have to try it with yours, mate, and then because they're playing some big stuff as well, aren't they? So it might be worth.
I might give it a go with.
A little try out, and then if it works out, then we can throw both our sets of kids at it, and then we can sit back and let them play.
Whenever I suggest to Logan, should we play a board game? He's like, yeah, I'll go get Core Request. Now, we do have other games, but no.
Can't blame them though. It's a bloody good game.
No, it's a bloody good game. Right, so that was Wizards & Go, Sinister Fish. If that sounds interesting, do go check it out. So while I was at Steve's, we actually played, in 3 hours, guys, we played 3 different games.
Wow.
Dominic.
Yeah.
Rather impressed with myself as well.
Well done.
That is efficient, gentlemen.
It was efficient. It was very efficient. So one of the other games we played, we'll talk about another game another day, but one of the games we played was Dorf Romantik, or Dorf Romantik, I don't know how you pronounce it, which is a translation from a video game of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have the video game, I played it, and it's very much it's considered a Zen kind of Carcassonne style game. So it's a game in which, the video game, in which you get a tile and you have to lay the tile down, you join it up to make rivers, forests, towns, and you have challenges about how big you can make these towns, and when they're completed, you score points. And it's just a game in which, I can't say it's like Zen, because it's a game in which all you're doing is trying to make points.
Yeah.
It's, you get so far and you score and you make a note of your high score and there you go. But I have a funny feeling it came out lockdown-ish. So a lot of people were at home playing with it. So this is a board game implementation of that video game and is practically exactly the same.
Yeah.
You have a series of 3 scoring tiles come out, which are towns, forests, rivers, railways, and fields. And then when you do one of these, you pick a random tile from the pool, which will tell you what you're trying to do, like how many forest tiles you're trying to join up together. And then you go through your pile of random landscapes, you pick one up and you put it down, and then you're trying to beat them and get the highest score possible. Now, I would say it's much simpler than even Carcassonne, which is the obvious first choice, because you're not in competition. It's a co-op game.
All right.
So you're all working together. So you're all discussing amongst you where you think you want these tiles to go to put them down and score the points.
Do we put this railway here? Do we put it there? What should we do with this forest? Is it going to be better over here? Do we leave ourselves open up for this option? And there is that lovely little discussion point.
And a bit of tactical stuff as well, because you're thinking, well, we've already got that 4 river there. Let's not put any more river tiles in there, because then if there's 5 scorer comes up, we can easily
we can just put it down and score it straight. Yeah.
Yeah, score it straight away, that kind of thing. And on its own, it does that, and it has the same problem I actually have with the video game.
Yeah.
Which is, that's it. You play it, you poke around it a bit, you get a score, well done. What's clever about this game is they've added in a legacy element.
Ooh.
Oh.
But the legacy is not traditional legacy and tear up cards and write on things. It's boxes to unlock stuff, but it's easily resettable.
Oh, so it's like new rules or tiles or something like that.
New rules, new tiles. Exactly that.
Yeah.
But what's really clever is these are achievement based. you have to, well, if you score so many points in the game, you get to tick off so many boxes. Tick off so many boxes, you can open box number 2, which introduces new rules. Box number 2 introduces achievements. Can you make a forest of 10 tiles? Make a forest of 10 tiles, you get this achievement, you unlock this new rule.
Yeah. So last night when Steve and I played, we unlocked the warehouse because we had scored 30 points in fields.
I can't remember.
We maxed out our score in one of the categories that you do, and because we did that, we unlocked this tile, this card. So next time I play it, it's going to carry on from the game Steve and I played with our legacy little map of crossing off boxes. I'm also going to have this new element that I've never ever had before. I've never seen it before.
That's quite cool. So you could unlock different legacy items depending on the achievement you do, or is it all quite So you could just bounce around between different boxes.
Yeah, so there's at the end of the game you score. So Steve and I scored 148 points, which allowed us to tick off 4 boxes. So you have this little map, and from where I was previously, we ticked off 4, and we're now going to this one over here. So the next achievement's going to be this one, probably. I forget what it is now. So you have that element of achievement, but because we actually achieve something within the game itself of scoring 30 points for fields, I've unlocked another card. So I've got all of these different things. So now in my next game, I can say, actually, I'm not going to go for high points. I want to unlock the locomotive. I want to unlock the circus. So we're going to double down and we're going to score. We're going to make sure that we're going to get 30 points in towns, regardless. That is what we're focusing on. And it gives you that point of, that focus for that game. Score some points, unlock some new stuff, new tiles, new bits and bobs, new rules, and a new challenge to go for as well.
That makes it sound even more video game-esque.
Yeah. And it is very video gamey, but it works.
Yeah.
It really works.
It really works. It's quite cool. And I've got to admit, the game is a lot of fun. I mean, the first half of the game, it's like, okay, this is perfectly functional. It does what it's supposed to do. And I'm enjoying it, but it wasn't, I couldn't say it set the world afire.
I could actually see your excitement rising towards the end of that game.
There was a point when we started chaining things, and going, right, if we do that, okay, we just need a river tile to come up. We just need a river tile. Oh, it's a river tile!
River tile, yeah! And then you put that river tile down, and we got to the point where we'd run out of landscape tiles, which are your normal tiles. So the last landscape tile we did finished off a task. So brilliant, we've scored that one. Let's get a new task. This one, it's a 4 field. Where can we put this to complete it immediately? So then it was always just we just need one more good tile, and we can keep this game going and score higher and higher and higher. And it was oh no, this one's rubbish. And it was really disappointing. Now the game has ended. We've pushed our luck and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And that bit was really exciting. It was really good fun. And I could see, Steve, you getting, we just need this. And you're doing that little bouncing around on your chair because you just wanted that tile. It's a really nice, calm game. I think it's still very zen. It's also because I think you could play this outside in a beer garden because everything's heavy enough that it probably is not going to fly away unless you've got a decent breeze, pretty strong wind. It's a garden game. You can enjoy it because it's so relaxed. You can enjoy it over a drink, over a natter. And it just plays and it's lovely. And you can have this focus, you can have this strategy about trying to keep making sure that everything's going to be open and usable later on. And also, I think it's just a really interesting game. I can't think of any games that are like that in the same way. You say Carcassonne is like a tile laying, but this is such...
There's games which have similar mechanics and similar aspects, but don't evoke the same feel because not that co-op score attack kind of thing.
Really delightful game, and at the end of it, I can reset it and let somebody else play it, or play it again. And in theory, I'm just going to be better at it because I'll be more familiar with the tiles. Am
I right in thinking you can take a different route for the unlocks as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can unlock different things next time you play.
Oh, you've got like a different set of achievements.
Yeah,
there's like paths to take. There's branching choices on where you're ticking off these boxes. So there are different choices of what you can unlock.
You could, in theory, just keep looping round, I guess.
So
Backtracking on yourself.
Do you think it would be less good a game without the legacy element? Does the legacy element take it from being a bit okay to something exciting and replayable?
Well, yeah, I think that's the key word. The last thing you said. It's a perfectly good game, and as we were just saying, I got really excited when we were playing it. The further we went on, as we're getting those scores at the end. But at the end of the day, it's just a score attack game. And I'm using this video game term in that there's no winner. It's a co-op game. You don't lose. It's just you're playing until you get the best score you can. It's that legacy stuff which just makes it that little extra. It's not just about scoring the most points. It's scoring the most points so you can unlock another box. It's doing, concentrate on getting the field so you can unlock that achievement, which just focuses it a bit more.
I guess it forces you to play a different game as well. So you don't just play the same game over and over. If you've got a different achievement, you're focused on getting to.
Yeah. I was like, reset it. I think the other thing is I could actually have a sheet for me, Steve, and Amanda. This is where we are. This is what we've unlocked. And then I've got another campaign, another legacy with some other friends, and I can have both legacies going on at the same time. And in one, I'm doing this because it's just actually when I'm playing with Steve and Amanda, I just take these components out and put these ones in, and it's really easy to go. Well, this will carry on our game, but I can also carry on playing it over here as well, and never the two shall meet. And it's because it's just a sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's just once it's done, there you go. That's it. Really good. I really enjoyed it. As it's nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, and I think it is different enough, and it's interesting enough, and it's good enough that I think it should do very well. And I think a lot of people are already interested. It flew off the shelves at Essen when it came out last year, the English edition. Really interesting game. I think it was only about 30 rips as well.
Which sounds about right for what's in that box, to be fair.
Yeah.
You don't really do much more than that, I don't think.
But I think you can get a lot of gameplay out of that. For 30 quid, if you played the entire campaign, the whole legacy, and got to the end of it, even if that's all you did with it before you sold it on again, you got hours and hours of gameplay there. And I think all relatively enjoyable. Good to play with kids as well, because it's essentially you're building. It's essentially a jigsaw. So, Dorf Romantik from Pegasus Spiel.
Sid, do you want to talk about something completely different?
He usually does.
We can talk about something completely different.
I think we should just slot this in. I mean, it's
slide
not
this in.
Yeah, we've been a little bit on it.
No, I demand a segue from Dorf Romantik to this next game, please.
Something about burning fields, tromping across Europe, something like that, maybe.
Right, I've got it, Sid.
He's got it.
Right.
He's got it.
Got it. Right. So when you finish this game, right, you finish your map of Dorf Romantik, and you've got this view of fields, of little hamlets, of rivers, which is exactly what our players would have seen in the aeroplane as it went over Normandy, as we're about to drop into the first mission of Actung Cthulhu.
2D20.
My God.
It's not a bad segue, to be fair. We worked on that. Give him the credit for that.
Yeah.
But yes, so something slightly different is Steve and I are using one of our RPG nights at the moment to kind of play around in a few systems, I suppose. We're having a bit of a lull between big campaigns. Mm-hmm. So we picked up a bit of Vaesen, Mythic Britain. We didn't like it, unfortunately.
It's nuts.
But that may come up another day. So instead, bit of background. We were doing a bit of a round robin thing. So what we thought is we'll try and get a few more people to have a go at games mastering and things like that. So we thought we'll pick Vaesen, nice easy system. And we were taking a turnabout, mixture of experienced games masters, inexperienced games masters, experienced players, inexperienced players. And everybody had a shot at GMing, and everybody did really, really well. Unfortunately, Mythic Britain, the campaign, let us all down. It's shit, frankly. I'm not going to mince my words about it. I've been buoyant enough about Free League in my time. This was wank.
The pre-written mysteries in Mythic Britain. Everything else in that book is really good.
Everything else is fantastic. The mysteries
terrible.
awful. But everybody did really well with it. But anyway, we got to the fourth one. It's supposed to be my turn, and I kind of went, guys, I've had enough of this, and I want to do something different. So threw up Acthung Cthulhu on the table because it's been bugging me for yonks. I've been wanting to play this for ages. So for everyone that doesn't know, it's an old RPG game that was based with Call of Cthulhu 6th edition. So it's probably about 10 years old.
Something
like that.
Yeah.
It's quite an old game, but it's essentially an alternate reality where the Cthulhu-esque mythos clashes with the World War II setting, with Nazis and everything else that comes with it. Okay, so you've now got a special branch of the German army, which are headed up by basically Cthulhu worshippers. So tentacle monsters dressed in SS uniforms. Right. That sets the background of this game.
If you've seen Hellboy,
Yeah.
or read Hellboy, the intro to Hellboy is basically the Nazi Germans are trying to raise a demon. It's basically that, but without Hellboy.
Yeah. So anyway, there's entire branches of the German army that are now all Nazi focused. So anyway, we thought we'd have a go of this, and the reason it's kind of fresh is about a year or so ago, it was republished, and it was republished in Modiphius's 2D20 system, which a few of us have played, and I think a lot of people have played. Things like Star Trek is released in that, Conan, a couple of others. Dune, indeed. Very nice system. I think we're all relative fans of it. Very easy to play. Basically, you've got 2d20s for most of your rolls. You pick a kind of main skill and an ability and a skill. You combine them together. You roll your 2d20s. You're aiming to roll underneath a target score. If you do, you get a success. If you roll a 1, you get 2 successes. Nice, simple system. What makes it interesting is you can buy dice using a currency called momentum. And that's a player currency. The GM also has a currency called threat, which is effectively the reverse. So for a player, they can buy dice to help them succeed in a roll or change the scene, and different things cost different amounts of dice, and you earn these dice by rolling additional successes, something like that. For a GM, they have threat, which they can use to kind of mess up, dick on the players. Basically, they can use it to buy dice for the NPC rolls. They can use it to make the scene change and throw in reinforcements, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, it's a really interesting twist on what's a really simple system, because it changes how people play the game, in that they are actually trying to take risks. They're trying to play the game. They're trying to do something different or hard for their character. And it sometimes pays off, sometimes doesn't. And what I thought was really interesting, and it ties in really well at keeping a really punchy, quick gameplay. And that's what Acthung Cthulhu is all about. It's a pulp-based game. It's fast. It's furious. It was, 4 or 5 hours for us to play this little campaign in?
So we played the quick start.
We played the quick start.
Like a little mini adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mini adventure. It brings in the rules. It teaches you a few things. It takes you through the whole thing. It's a really nice, interesting little story. A couple of fight scenes, bit of stealthing around, bit of conversational stuffy, bit of role-playing opportunity, all that. It's got all the little elements you need in it. Beautiful little thing. 4 hours, 5 hours I think we played it in. And I think at the end of it, we got to 10 o'clock or something, or 10:30 after we finished the session. And Steve goes, "What? How on earth is it 10:30?"
That's a sign of a good game.
It's a good sign.
And it was a really fun little game. I mean, it's such a quick little system. The pulp environment, the pulp scenario that they have, the theming of it, the artwork, all of it just fits this game really well. Like the campaigns that you can buy come as almost comic book pamphlets, and all the artwork is in that style as well. It's, you've got stuff like Attack on the Führer's Train as a campaign. Who doesn't want to play that? It's a really, really fun, interesting campaign. So if anyone's looking out there, is looking for something a bit different, bit of a change of pace, and they just want something, I think Steve calls them palette cleansers, where you're swapping between game systems, or you just need somebody to fill in a gap while somebody's prepping the next big campaign, go and check out Acthung Cthulhu 2D20 specifically from Modiphius. It is everything you need. It's like a little lemon sorbet between your main course and your pudding. It is honestly, it is absolutely fantastic. I think it kind of regenerated us a bit, didn't it? I think everybody's now really excited. It gave us some time to then talk about our next games. Everyone came off the back of that really excited, and I think it did everything it should do, and it delivered everything we wanted it to.
So, question: is this a one-shot thing, or can you campaign it and play the same characters? And
Yes,
you can campaign it.
Yeah.
Very easily. It's designed to be campaigned if you want. It's a bit like, as I say, it's Cthulhu. It's Call of Cthulhu based, so you can have the long running campaigns. You probably won't have the same character though, almost certainly, because they'll be dead.
Right. Okay.
But you can, as a player, campaign it. But I don't think. Like quite a few of the D2, D20 systems and some of these like Tales from Loop, some of these lighter systems, rules light systems, I don't think they work well as campaigns. I think they work better as little, short, sharp pockets of disruption between other stuff. Not disruption, distraction is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, most of the content that's been released for this so far has been relatively short for the 2D20 system. So it feels like as if even the designers have gone, this is designed to be played in little bursts rather than full-on campaigns. I mean, there is large content. I'm looking at some of the other stuff they produced, several hundred pages of stuff, but the pulpy nature means that even though there are campaigns to it, it's not, you're not going to be playing it for a year like you are like D&D, for instance. It's nothing that kind of length.
I mean, it's the whole game is mad, guys. You've got ray guns in it. You've got supernatural tentacle monsters. You've got, it's just the whole concept, the artwork in it is very kind of pulpy and it's bonkers. It really is bonkers. And I don't know how you felt from a player side, Steve, but for me as a GM, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad we've played it. And I think it's one that I would happily throw back on the table anytime again.
I'm intrigued. I mean, now you've said that, I mean, I've got quite a bit of content for it. And a lot of it is quite short, sharp stuff, but there is a couple of longer campaigns. I do wonder how much you want to poke that, if that makes sense. Do you want to keep it short and sharp, or do we want to try and play some of the longer stuff?
It'd be interesting to try, I think. If we ever get the time to fit a longer campaign, even for like a couple of months, and just poke, because all the campaigns are chapterized anyway.
Yes.
So you can pick up like a chapter where you're in Austria for that adventure or something. Then the next, it's very Indiana Jones in its kind of scene setting. So you can like jump from one part of the world to another part and then go somewhere else. So you can just pick up a chapter at a time even. Yeah. And play it like that.
I would say one drawback is not necessarily with the game, it's a little bit of Modiphius's quality control. Yeah. Which they are almost notorious for now. I mean, we played through this and we checked I think it was focus points.
Yep.
There's a paragraph in the rulebook. Fortune points. There's a paragraph in the rulebook which says you gain 3 fortune points at the beginning of every session. Fortune points do not return until the end of the adventure. It's like, well, hang on, that's the same paragraph. These 2 sentences were directly after each other and they've just contradicted each other.
Skills.
Do I get them all back at the beginning of the session, or do I have to wait to the end of the adventure? And then there was another point where one of our characters had a Thompson machine gun, the other character had a Thompson submachine gun, but the main rulebook only includes a Thompson machine gun, and there was 2 different damage dice, a 4 damage dice and a 5 damage dice. However, the example characters in the main rulebook include both different weapons and both different dice, even though one of those weapons isn't listed in the weapon tables. It's little things like that sometimes. It's just like, we found this within a few minutes of playing. We found these in a few minutes, an hour of playing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Did no one proofread this properly?
And this was on the Quick Start. So the Quick Start came out earlier as well. So the Quick Start came out before the main books. So it'd been played loads. It had the opportunity to be reprinted. It's only as a PDF. So it's not even like they have to re-release it to the world and reprint it. They literally just need to fix the edit. It'll be fine. Right? But you're right. It is a Modiphius thing. It's happening in all. I mean, all my Fallout stuff is the same. I think anything I've bought from Modiphius, it's riddled with this stuff, and the errata is almost as important as the Rain rulebook. I'd like a printed errata next time, if I'm honest. If I'm buying a Modiphius book, I want a printed errata to come with it.
I did buy the Skyrim board game. I was going to kickstart and didn't, but then I saw it in a shop and bought it. And since now, I haven't played it yet, but I've heard the rulebook actually has a tutorial in there, and the tutorial has misprints.
Jesus. Wow. That's poor.
Yeah, so, yeah. Right, we've got a few minutes left, boys and girls. Why don't we dip into the mailbag?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Positively bursting. So we should open it.
So pick us a question. Go on, pick a question that tickles your fancy.
Pick us a question. Right.
Go on then, Mr. Lewis.
Well, I reckon Brian Stevens asked an interesting question.
I'm just looking at that now. Yeah.
You guys have mentioned a couple of things there. So
bloody hell, there's loads.
Go on then, Sid.
What he asks is, hi colliders. Not having endless funds and having been cured of my acquisition disorder. Now, this is not the question he's asking, by the way, Andy, so you're all right. I was wondering whether you guys could help me with a decision. I play games of all weights. My favourite heavy game would be Anachrony with the Fractions expansion.
Mm-hmm.
I've been tossing up on shelling out for either Sulkin, Brass, Birmingham. I have lots of ancient heavies like Tigris, Euphrates, Goa, Taj Mahal, Prince of Florence, etc. But the only newish ones I have are the Gaia Project, Beyond the Sun, and A Feast for Odin with the Norwegian expansion, all of which I like. I would be happy for any advice on a heavy game purchase, hopefully one not requiring expansions to shine.
Well, I have about, 2 Kallax cubes worth of a collection I could definitely and strongly recommend, Mr. Stevens. It is by a little-known designer by the name of Mr. Vital Lacerda. You want some heavy games, mate? You go for them because they are bloody brilliant. They do range in heft, I think, down from starting at the Gallerist. I would say it's probably his lightest game, if you don't count the recent Bot Factory, which I'm yet to play. And then you go through, I think, Escape Plan is probably next up, which is very different and very weird compared to the rest of his stuff. But then you've got things like Vinos, Lisboa, all the way up to On Mars, Kanban. There's obviously Weather Machine that's been recently released, and there's the new Kickstarter that's just finished, which is Inventions. Now, all of these games are designed by Vincent Lacerda, published by Eagle Griffin, rules by Paul Grogan, and artwork by Ian O'Toole. So this sort of superstar tag team of this sort of Mega Four has proven to be particularly good. So if you do like a really kick-ass heavy game, then I would strongly recommend you start dipping your toe into the Lacerda train.
I would say they're not cheap.
They are not cheap. No, they are not cheap.
So if you haven't got endless funds, it has to be picked carefully. But I would say, although there are expansions available for a few of them, all of them work perfectly well and almost work perfectly without an expansion.
Yes, the ones I've got all of them. The ones that have come through Kickstarter have all got sort of very baby expansions in them, but they're like kind of optional, thank you for buying this, we've added a few tokens or cards, or if you want to add this little tiny module into the game, you can do. The only one that's got an expansion of its own that I'm aware of is On Mars. Like a proper big box expansion. And On Mars is heavy, so I haven't tried the expansion.
You don't even need that expansion. There's enough there to get your head around as it is.
But in terms of actually, if you want Sulkin or Brass Birmingham, based on your funds statement,
I'm really interested to what you're going to say here. Actually,
I would say it's Sulkin. They're both brilliant. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they're very, very different games.
They're very different games. I love them both.
Yeah, me too.
But I would also say Sulkin. Yeah. Also, Sulkin is going to be cheaper than Brass Birmingham.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to be a lot cheaper. I think Sulkin, if you're paying more than 35 rips, I think for.
Yeah, you could get Sulkin for probably
like. And it's always on the second hand or on a math trade as well.
Yeah.
You'll get Sulkin, and it is a great game. It is.
And then that leads the path to the rather addictive T-Game series, which is another series of extremely good heavy games by Board and Dice and NSKN and various other publishers. That I think Sulkin actually, because that's going to be the crack to a lot of other stuff.
It's the gateway drug.
It is,
and it's it's a very reasonably priced gateway drug as well. I mean, you could buy 3 Zolkins for the price of the Gallerist.
That's not actually untrue. Yeah. And that's full price tokens.
Yeah.
Because I think last time when we were at, I think it was Aircon, but it might have been Expo. I think it was Aircon. We were looking for. I just saw copies of Weather Machine knocking around into the various shops, and I think one of them was being sold brand new, admittedly for RRP. I think £165. That is, you could get it a lot cheaper than that. I reckon you could probably get it for 120 if you shopped around, but. That's the kind of territory.
Copies of Zolkin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at fund-based decisions for good, medium, thinky, grutty games that really are quite unique, Zolkin, definitely Zolkin.
He has spoken.
Personally.
There you go, Brian. Go and buy Zolkin. It's a bloody good game. It's got involute gear forms. That's all you need.
And it makes an excellent painted project.
It does.
It does actually, yeah.
If you're into that.
So, Danielle asks us 2 questions. She said, due to the amount of Iron Maiden shirts she spotted at Games Expo, are there any board games, TTRPG, war gamers, artists, or specifically metal band of choice? Okay. On 2, could you recommend any music-based board games? She says we've mentioned an app-based one that you can no longer play. And she's seen one called Come Together and one called Festival.
So, I'm not entirely sure what the question is in number 1.
Number 1, there is a bizarre link between heavy metal and tabletop games, right? This link got properly personified in the 90s between a band called Bolt Thrower, and Games Workshop. In that, Games Workshop actually licensed their artwork for the cover of Bolt Thrower albums.
Wow.
So if you look at the Bolt Thrower album collection, you will see several Warhammer 40,000 Warhammer Fantasy album covers, like the Rogue Trader cover with the Crimson Fists all fighting off everything. Yeah. That's a Bolt Thrower cover artwork, which is really weird because that's such an iconic 40k piece of artwork also to see on a band cover. Also, all their songs, if you look at the names of the tracks, are things like, Nurgle gets referenced and things like that. So, there is a really weird crossover. And I mean, and Dan is going to know this obvious crossover, which if you think of Eddie from Stranger Things, that stereotype is there for a reason because they're both subgroups, really, aren't they?
Pretty
like
much,
subcultures. Yeah, from the 80s. Recommend any music-based board games? I don't know of many. There was one we played. The Gig is the one I'm waiting for, which I'm really looking forward to. It's a Kickstarter one I'm looking forward to. I don't know of many others.
No.
Right, actually, I was having a conversation about this on Sunday. A mate of mine picked up an RPG that is music-based in the fact that what is it called? It's called Ribbon Drive. And your player creation... You have to make a soundtrack. You have to make a mixtape that you'd listen to in the car on a long drive.
Oh wow! Right, I think now that kind of answer is what Dan is looking for. I reckon that when Dan hears this, she's going to be on old Google finding that and getting amongst it.
Yeah, a Ribbon Drive, I think it's called, and we're going to play it in a few weeks. But you've got, the idea is
you're going to have to report back on that on a future episode.
You are going to have to.
Every player puts together, you've got to put together a mixtape that you're going to listen to on the drive in the car, and the mixtape has to have a theme. And then when you start playing someone, you randomly choose someone's CD, you put it on, and everybody listens to track 1, and that is essentially the setting for the movie, for the game. And it's really, so you've got to imagine like the CDs are the 4 acts of a movie, and CD 1 is going to be the first act and the theme and the tone and the lyrics. And then when you create your characters, so you listen to the first one that gives you the theme for the game, the mission, then you listen to track 2, and then you create your characters, and it's normal stuff like, name, traits, and you pick 3 traits, but one of the things in your character creation has to be a reference to the lyrics from song 2.
Oh wow! Like the second song on the list, not Blur's song 2, right?
Yeah.
So I've just looked this up. It's GM-less as well.
Yeah, it's GM-less, yeah. A GM-less, music-based RPG.
Oh, yeah, this is going right down
That's
street.
right.
There you go.
Right, you'll have to report back on this. Is this a fantastic idea, or is this just
Tosh.
a concept?
I'm really interested in this because I'm playing it with people of varying different age groups. So I think the CDs are going to be quite different.
It's cheap as well. It's only a £5 off drive-through.
Sid might be playing it as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at it. It's a really interesting concept because you're going to end up with such a random variety of music, and you're almost going to go out of your way to pick things that will clash, aren't you? You're going to find like random stuff that just jars with itself, and it's going to be hilarious. This sounds absolutely hilarious.
Your mixtape has to have an overarching theme. And the idea is that when your CD ends, we pick someone else's randomly to go in. That is a scene change in the RPG. And again, the game ends when all 4 have been played.
That's just genius, yeah.
I think you've got like you must have like a track limit. You must be like 12 tracks each or something like that. But yeah, it's a really short one track. It seems really interesting.
Wicked. Well, there you go, Dan. One of you is going to have to report back. I don't care who it is. Both of you, in fact, can report back on how well it goes.
Right then, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyedge and Collider. Give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. You can find us all over the internet, Facebook, Instagram, the Board Game Geek Guild 2726.
Mm-hmm.
But until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.